Did the curiosity of Dungeons and Dragons get to you and you want to run the game but you've never played it before? Stay here and I'll guide you through it. So in recent time, there has been a boom in Dungeons and Dragons, or at least in the interest in playing Dungeons and Dragons, and a lot of it has to do with shows like Stranger Things. And fortunately for people like myself who love Dungeons and Dragons, we are seeing a lot of new players that have been coming to the forefront to want to play. The problem is there's only so many people that run Dungeons and Dragons, which are called the Dungeon Masters. And I believe that new players can be the Dungeon Master without even having to play the game. In fact, I've played the game maybe twice before I actually started Dungeon Mastering, which was about 3-4 years ago. And so I really think that you guys can learn to play the game and Dungeon Master simultaneously while having fun. Okay, so the first thing that you're probably asking yourself, what is Dungeons and Dragons? And its very core, and its very essence, it's a role-playing game. That's essentially what it is. And there's different aspects to this role-playing game, but one of the main things that people want to play this game is, one, you want to escape reality. It's really what it is. It's a form of escapism. It's kind of like playing a video game, except you're playing it live with your friends and you're just using your mind to pretend that these things and events are actually happening. And so most often, at least the predominant genre when you're playing this is like you're in the medieval times, except there's like monsters that are trying to eat you and your family, like literally. And you're out there trying to stop them from eating you alive. Literally, especially if you're my boy Rob, who dies in my games getting eaten alive almost every other session. Just kidding. Maybe I'm not kidding. So there are two aspects to playing Dungeons and Dragons. The first aspect is the role-playing aspect, and then the second aspect is the gaming aspect. The role-playing aspect of D&D. So what is the role-playing aspect of D&D? Is pretty much you guys are playing in a game in which you are pretending that there is this world that exists. Now this is not limited to medieval times period. You can do futuristic, you can do space. We actually did a one-shot at my house the other day on a space theme and it got very out of hand. Yep. You could potentially even play in a modern time period, although I would strongly suggest to play a different game system like Call of Cthulhu, which is something I do want to talk about in the future. But for right now, I really want to focus on D&D. I think that D&D has the ability to be as flexible as you want it to be. Whatever games that you want to have, D&D could essentially provide it for you. And the way that this is provided for you is through the gaming mechanics, or like I like to call the gaming aspect of D&D. The gaming aspect of D&D is essentially the rules that help set up the backbone of this game, in which you, the players, build the role-playing aspect on. So again, the rules are the skeletal, it's the frame. The role-playing aspect is the flesh, it's what materializes out of that. You can't have one with the other. If you don't have rules, you're just gonna have a blob of flesh there, a shambling monster. Anyways, or you're just gonna have skeleton and no flesh. And as you know, skeletons look the same, and you wouldn't even know, well, at least human skeletons look the same. I guess a dog skeleton and a human skeleton would not look the same. But the point that I was trying to say is that the skeleton, it doesn't have anything external. It's just that. It's skeletons, and you need life. I mean, I guess you would need organs and bloods and veins, but listen, that's not the point. The point is that you, to complete the role-playing aspect, or to complete D&D in of itself, or Dungeons and Dragons, you need both the role-playing and the gaming aspect. Now, with that being in mind, I'm going to tell you right now, D&D has a lot of rules. It's like a ton of rules. It's like you could sit here and I swear you can write your like doctorate on the rules of D&D, because it really does get kind of complicated sometimes, especially that they keep adding expansions to the game. It adds another level of complexity, and sometimes the game designers don't I mean, it's not like they have, I don't know, all the time in the world to sit there and look at every possible scenario in which a new rule can possibly affect another rule. And sometimes these things happen. And so these rules rules seem to contradict sometimes, and maybe they do contradict. And there are times that a player sees something that you as a DM doesn't see, and now they're bringing up this ruling, and then it becomes this like, well, what do I do? Which rule do I follow? Is it A? Is it B? Is it both? Is it none? So this is where the complexity of the game comes. So before I scare you away from the game, I'm going to tell you right now, you don't have to worry about every single rule in D&D. I don't know every single rule. Maybe if you're like Matt Mercer, you probably know all the rules or something like that. I don't even know. I don't even know if Jeremy Crawford knows all the rules off the top of his head. The point is that it's not as important, or at least it shouldn't be in theory, because some people really take it that important. And that's another discussion for another day. But here we're going to see how important it is to know at least the very basic rules.